Welcome everyone to another episode of the Mere Mortals Meanderings, live here on the 22nd of February 2026. You have Karen here.
You got Juan on the other side.
And we're going to be talking about business, getting out of business today. And our meandering sessions is where we kind of just pick a topic and then go over some of our thoughts, recent observations, perhaps some YouTube videos or books that we've been learning about. Did I actually bring the book in? No, I didn't.
Good. That's what I thought you were doing, running this one.
I have a book that is up in my car called The Innovator's Dilemma.
By
Someone Christensen.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yep.
And it's one of the most renowned economics books of the last, or top 10 economics books of the last 50 years or something.
Okay. Yep.
It's got those sort of claims
That sort of
attached with it. And it's essentially, as a synopsis, I don't really want to talk about the book too much. I want to talk about business stuff.
It's what encouraged the idea of the business topic. Cool.
But as a general quick preview, the book is trying to explain the question: why do these big companies that are set up in really good markets fail or like get out innovated? Okay. So think of ones like IBM when personal laptops or PCs came along and they essentially lost market share. Like they were the dominant computer place. How did they lose out to this? How did a whole bunch of like these excavation companies who had machinery, so this is before kind of Caterpillar, Komatsu, a bunch of them, it used to be cable actuated, and then hydraulics came along, and then they kind of like ate into their share of their business. They used to have these really good businesses, and then it's like next thing they know, it's like, oh, no one's buying our stuff, and it's all of these
hydraulic
like
stuff.
new hydraulics. So the book really focused on the disk drive industry, which I never thought I would get into. So it was talking about how disk drives used to be like 13.5 megabytes, then they went to like 5.5, then 3.5, and then eventually like 2 point whatever. So, it's mostly focused on the 70s, 80s period of time.
Okay.
Because the book was written in the 1990s, I believe. And essentially the essential point of it is when you've got these companies that are in a really good position, let's just take IBM, they're making a product, why do they not innovate and, follow this new market that's emerging and capture it? And essentially it's not because they're shit at business, like it's not because every one of these companies had poor managers who couldn't see the future, who couldn't who were like blind to what was going on or thought that they had the best product. It wasn't like hubris. It was more that the internal structure of the company was like, we need to grow more. We need, we're 100 selling, we're doing sales of 400 million. We need to sell 40 million the next year, or like 440 million the next year. These new markets emerge for this new technology, which typically is, well, it's a new market, so they're not going to be able to sell 440 million of stuff into it. The margins on it are less, so it's like not even like a prospect in that kind of category. And they as a business can't adapt to it. They can't, their internal systems are all about like metrics, listening to customers, and improving quality, and eventually it reaches this point where it's like you've created a product that's too good, in essence. Like you're optimized. You're like, we're going to put more megabytes into it. We're going to do more of this, more of that, and then this disruptive one comes along, and it kind of meets the threshold that these customers that might want, but never knew they wanted. So it's like, oh yeah, we do actually want computers that can fit in onto a table in our homes rather than needing a whole room. We do want a portable radio that could be put into cars and not these gigantic radio stations and stuff. So essentially it was just, it's very hard for these companies to do that. And so the best ones would usually spin off a smaller company, like in a completely different location, different culture, different CEO or metrics of success. Like success isn't doing X amount of revenue. It's learning where a new market might emerge for this new technology. So why all of this kind of plays into my thoughts recently was I was just telling Juan about going to the I went to an OpenClaw AI meetup, and I guess you could say this is a disruptive technology in a sense. Most of the book was about hardware. It wasn't about software, but I think this will apply perhaps to, have you heard of the DiSASSter? That's
DiSASSter?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's something that's popping up.
Sorry, for simplistic reasons, I guess, for people would be the example of SaaS products, software as a service. If you think of, some people probably wouldn't know this, but when you're using in business backends, you've got things like a lot of the Oracle products. You've got a lot of the cloud stuff that a lot of internal businesses would use. Some of the conversations are like
Microsoft Office is
Microsoft Office.
SaaS.
So I guess the example there of desassing or going away is, could you basically get something to create this entire product just of a raw AI or something else equivalent, so that you don't even have to purchase a subscription to do something like that. And I guess you could get something like OpenClaw to be using other open source software to just create the tools that you need, and then you no longer need SaaS products themselves.
Yep. So I guess a lot of this topic will be focused on perhaps where we might see business going for the next, let's say, foreseeable future, like the next couple of years, and maybe even longer into the future. And then I want to focus on okay, if we were to create a business, how would we go about doing that?
Yep.
And what kind of skills would we bring to the table, not bring to the table, that sort of thing. So,
okay, cool. Yeah, I like that. Yep.
Perhaps let's just start on the businesses as they are at this moment.
Well, I'll give you two interesting points, which I think is
you put in
this is slightly changing, I think, the historical concept, in that historically, if you go back through history, companies as entities don't last forever, right? They're things that last for decades, some centuries. Some have been around for a long time, but they've got some limitation, and that's usually
even centuries is they're not what they started off as.
Correct. Yeah, they've changed. Some that have existed for centuries, watchmakers. There's some chocolatiers as well that have been existing for centuries as well. So there's some that exist, but generally there's transitions, there's changes. So the name might be itself, but there's conversations around what was the beginning of, say, Netflix, which was actually like a blockbuster competitor, with DVDs being sent to homes, and obviously now being a digital provider of content. So that's definitely changed. But there is a weird thing that I feel like has happened, and I've had conversations with my dad and a couple of other people around it, which is maybe in the 80s and 90s, and maybe this is more aligned to some IT companies than it is on everything, but you could see in the IBMs, if you like, Compaq, some of the other hardware type companies out there, even some of the early software, you're thinking, or products like Yahoo or something like that, they didn't innovate in this concept of changing that rapidly. And then absolutely things like your Googles and then the ensuing social media protocols that came out and everything else, it started kind of taking over. And for all the reasons that you already mentioned, some places just kind of are entrenched with, we have these customers, they make $100 million from whatever. There's no reason for them to go from the brownfield that they're doing to a greenfield where they're only going to make $1 million, when they can just go, we can just make a better quality product and make 10 million next year. Again, the example here is Blockbuster. They imagine going down the process of, we can give 5 DVDs to our customers for $10. You know what was better? Forget this digital thing that's coming. We'll give them 5 DVDs for $8. We're going to make such amount of money. And you can get that as reduced as possible. Ultimately, the customer then follows on the path of digitally available products. And then it's, you're not using that sort of process anymore. So that is probably the process I'm seeing. However, what I've been seeing recently is, and we're talking about the big 7 company, the big 7, I guess, in terms of your market cap. And there's the Nvidias, you've got Apple.
Fang, isn't it?
Yeah, Fang, but now it's like a new name because you've got Nvidia in there now as well. And so it's grown. Sure. Like the Fangs used to be Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google.
Yeah.
But now there's Nvidia. I mean, Nvidia's the highest market cap company in the world. Yeah. And then you've also got SpaceX and XAI, which have now merged together, which are going to go into a IPO this year. You've got OpenAI IPO in this year. You've got Anthropic IPO in this year. And they're all going to be looking at $500 billion to $1 trillion market cap, right? So all of these new companies are also coming online. But what I'm seeing, interestingly enough, is the likes of your Alphabet, which is Google's parent company, Amazon, all of these sort of players. I would have thought that they might have not pivoted as quickly in the same way. They've got existing businesses. Amazon just recently is the highest revenue making business in the world. It just went over Walmart with it. And so maybe you're thinking, looking at historical concept, they're going to be a slightly bit slower in turning around. Maybe Apple has been in this particular case, but the likes of Amazon, the likes of Google, the likes of, not Apple, but
I was going to say,
Google, Amazon.
There was a graph going around I saw recently
of CapEx investment.
Yeah.
And all of them are just like out of this world, but Apple, not really.
Well,
Apple's just like still like nothing. But in all of this, it's like the investment that a lot of these gigantic companies are now making on completely shifting where they're spending, what they're doing, actually makes me go, whoa, that's very different to what I've seen in the past. And I don't know if it's people having that historical view of like, okay, make sure that we don't repeat this mistake that everyone was making, and they've got really smart people in there, or is it partly that, or is it they're not going to be able to keep up with the new changes that a startup will come. The only thing I'd say is I do wonder, even though has always been the case historically, I wonder if people are slightly maybe clued in, or they'll just go down the path of domineering any new startups that come along by a buyout because of the amount of money, unless there's people out there who just don't want to sell.
No companies would ever exist because there's always been these massive companies that could buy out people all the time. So, Facebook could have got bought out. It didn't. So, and now it's the biggest company. So that never happens over a long period. I guess one thought is this different from what was happening, let's say 30 years ago, with all of these examples that I was giving of like disk drives, of the hydraulic excavators? They had a couple of other examples, but those were the two of the bigger ones that they mentioned. I guess like software versus hardware is probably one distinction to make. So like these companies are spending a shit ton. How much of that is going into hardware versus going into software, or like people who are designing software, if you know what I mean? So like, they're throwing millions into, billions into acquiring, OpenClaw. It was billions, right?
I don't think they paid him very much. I don't think they paid him that much at all. I don't even think they paid him ultimately, because OpenAI.
I thought the whole thing was they gave him $1 billion.
They've kept him. I honestly don't think I saw like a figure, but all I've seen is that OpenAI will continue supporting OpenClaw in a open source way, but they brought him in to support the internal creation of more agents. There might have been. I don't think I'd ever seen like any articles, and even listening to him talk about it on a podcast, I don't think he mentioned anything in relation to that particular thing.
I thought there was like a big...
Surely he's got paid for something.
OpenAI may have just paid $5 billion to acquire OpenClaw, but that's just a fucking thing. Yeah, hard to tell. Anyway, even
that was an interesting one, I guess, to the concept that you were saying about there's some people out there who might not want to be bought out, and I think he had already sold the company for $300 or $400 million or something like that. So he was like very financially sweet.
Yeah.
And he'd been making and trying to create lots of apps for ages. And this one was the one that had really taken off.
Yeah.
In a conversation with Lex Friedman, he was like, I don't give a shit about what I'm doing. I'm doing it for enjoyment. So if he actually did it for money, that's actually hilarious, because in the conversation that I had him with Lex, he was like, I don't care about money. I'm just doing this for fun.
Yeah.
So if he actually got bought out, I'm like, man, what the hell?
You know what's better than $300 million?
$5 billion. $5 billion. Yeah.
Once again, that ignore that $5 billion. I a non-verified source.
Correct.
But yeah, there is this question of whether spending on hardware versus software will get you there. And look, plenty of these companies that were at the top of their game did try and outspend to get into these new disruptive markets and failed to do so. So just because the current incumbents are spending a shit ton doesn't mean they're going to successfully transition into being wealthy or providing value in the next 10 years, for example, or providing, they can still provide value, but just not in a market that is emerging and will eventually eat their lunch. So there's all these, wish I had the book with me, don't, but it kind of showed how there was these intersecting lines where, and one thing to talk about also is you can make really bad business decisions by continually not pursuing this, what he called sustaining innovation, which is, okay, you've just invented like the 13.5 megabyte disk drive. You want to ramp up production of that. You want to make it as clean and fault safe as possible. You want to make sure it's interconnected with other devices and things. Spending all your resources and energy and time doing that is probably a good idea when the technology for doing a 2.5 is just coming together. Some dude has literally just put it together for the first time in the inner bowels of their own company, or perhaps in some tinkerer and in some office somewhere or in whatever. That would be abandoning your on the exponential in a way, or you're kind of going up it and then just hopping off it to start again on this fucking flat bit to then eventually ride the next one up. No, the best bit would be, you're on the S curve, you're just getting to the point where it's starting to flatten out, and that's when you jump down towards the exponential bit of the next
another one. Yep.
Timing, that'd be great. And if you could do that with investing as well, we'd all be fucking rich as shit because, I'd know exactly when to jump out of gold back into Bitcoin.
Yeah, when
to get out of Bitcoin into fucking energy. And if you could do that even in a single day, you could become the wealthiest person on earth by just moving fucking $10 and turning it into 10 trillion by doing that in a single day. Obviously you can't, because it's too impossible to predict. So I guess the question is, if you had to bet, do you think the Apples, the Amazons, the Metas, will they be as I don't want to use the word, I don't want to put metrics of money to it, but perhaps importance. Will they be as important in, let's say, 5 years' time?
I think in 5 years' time, yeah. I think in 5 years' time for sure that they will. Especially what we're saying is, if they pivot or change enough, they don't have to completely change, but if they change enough to continue consuming or uptaking what a new consumerism or the new value is, absolutely. 50 years? Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know.
No one knows what's happening.
But yeah, 5 years, I'd say that it'll be super important.
The other question would be: is AI or is AI disruptive technology in a sense? Which is, or is that too broad?
Well, I think I'd probably go that whether it is in a direct impact to a human, like the value to a human. I'm sure people who'd be listening to this right now might be like, oh, I don't really see that impact. I see the impact in everything that I'm doing. I've seen of other people with that direct impact, so there's enough impact. But I think there's enough in the CapEx and the capital expenditure of basically every company out there, and where every venture capital funding is going and all of the money to do things is going to something associated with that, is enough that I go, okay, that's disrupting the marketplace and everything significantly enough that even if at the human level, even at the individual, you think, nah, it's not affecting that much, it sure as heck is doing it to the global space. I think there was something like, I can't remember the percent. No, I don't even think there was a percentage, but in a podcast a couple of weeks ago, someone was mentioning, it's in the US, don't know if this is global, but in the US, if you want venture capital and you're not doing something AI related, you're not getting money.
Sure.
Y Combinator type style, you're not getting any funding if you're not in that space. Like they just get, like if you're trying to do something else in maybe medical space that doesn't have AI, or you're trying to do some sort of retail work, forget it. No one's funding you because all the funds are going specifically for something in that space. The amount of, I think the energy in the US, I think, and I'm assuming this flows semi like this globally, I think it's 7% of all energy is just going to data centers now. So like data centers are just taking up all of the energy that you once would have expected. Yeah. I'm sure that will continue. The amount of, the pivot of, like, whether you like them or not, from an Elon Musk perspective, and whether the timings of this is correct or not, obviously dubious. But the fact that they've basically changed complete pivot of, hey, we're not going to go to Mars anymore. Forget that. We're just going to be trying to launch 10,000 rockets per year to send all of the data centers up into space, and then do the fucking rocket launching off the moon to go and do more ones in the combination of SpaceX and XAI as part of the legal proceedings as to why they were doing it. It was like, it's so we can achieve Kardashev type 1 civilization.
Why do you want a data center in space? What does that do?
Because then it's solar powered. And if you've got solar powered here on Earth, you've got both the availability of the sun day and nighttime cycle, but you've got the ozone layer and the cloud, like just ozone and hemisphere that stops the amount of solar power going through. Whereas I think they were working out, it's actually cheaper it's way cheaper to run data centers in space with solar power because it's consistent. But even if you include the cost of the payload being sent off into space, it's still cheaper than doing it on Earth. So that's kind of like the numbers. Now, they haven't done this yet, obviously. Yeah, so whether it's true or not, like whether it actually comes out to that cost, that's why I was saying that SpaceX is changing it to they want to be sending about a million payloads into space, or a million data centers, if you will.
This sounds like classic Elon.
And I would say absolutely, but now there's 3 other companies that have pivoted to this. Amazon as well. Like Jeff Bezos was like, same, fuck it. Forget the moon. They're also going on the path of, someone was talking about this yesterday, that the problem with Amazon though is that they're actually making data centers for space so fast, but they have no real ability to keep up with the actual deployment from the Earth up into space. So they're already making them. It's just they need to get the like reusability of rockets into place if they're going to be doing 10,000 a year means like 1 an hour or some crazy shit like that. So, sure. That's, their time frames, like it's within the next 5 years. Again, I put dubiousness towards that. But I guess what I'm saying is I do feel overall there is a pretty significant towards the AI group it, whatever the fuck all of that is. There's enough happening on Earth that there's a big pivot in eyeballs towards that, and less in other places, even if it's not directly affecting you on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I take a lot of these numbers with a grain of salt. I've seen this with Bitcoin as well, where it's like it's using 5% of the energy of the world or something, and then it's like, okay, but other people come up with numbers of you had your washing machine on just before. Washing machines consume 7% of the world's energy, and then it's like this thing, light bulbs consume 1%, and then it's if you tally it all up, it equals like 500%. So it's like, well, where things are obviously getting double counted here. So when they say data centers consume 7%, I think it's most likely probably a little bit lower.
I wonder how they're actually getting the number. I mean, I would only assume that you would have to go like, hey, because you can calculate, hey, in the state we're using 22 gigawatts per hour or something like that. And they can go, okay, from this node over here, we're getting 7%, and that node is purely from a data center. Okay, there's 7% of energy coming from a data center.
I think more it's like, oh, there's this hydroelectric dam nearby. It uses, it's got X amount. This company says they use 90%, but it's like, okay, of that power, but it's like, okay, no, the company, uses that electricity for other things, not just data centers. Anyway.
Yeah, I think, but
a little side.
But broadly, I guess, on a business side, I think I am seeing even some of the bigger players, even some of the, like, I wouldn't say SpaceX is a new player anymore as an idea, or Tesla, definitely not new. That was like early 2000s that it was started. But even Tesla is shifting pretty quickly. And part of it, I think, so business and to the individuals, I think if you've got the right people who maybe have that historical context or they know that they've got to evolve, maybe you'll see these companies go beyond 5 years and still stick around and be useful or to the value of whatever the world at that time cares for. For sure, though, there's going to be some big old players that don't shift very fast. I think there's I would not Microsoft, but like IBM, and I know they're doing something slightly separate, but the comparison of IBM and Oracle transitioned heavy so that they're really into data centers and they're making a shit ton of money off it. The Japanese manufacturer Toto, Toto toilets?
No.
So Toto toilets are like these really famous toilets that do the spraying up your ass, and they're like the more luxurious type of event. Sure, I'm sure in that particular market, they're still making a lot of money. Currently, 40% of their income comes from AI. Why? Because they have a gigantic metric shit ton of ceramic, and that ceramic is used in the manufacturing of AI chips and the like. So they're currently selling the ceramic because there's an absolute shortage of it.
Sure.
And so they've like 40% of the revenue is purely on selling ceramic. So, you can see pivots towards, obviously we're talking about the AI grouping, but
Bitcoin miners, a lot of them have transitioned to becoming, if not fully, but at least partially AI data centers as well. And
sure, yeah.
I went to
I was going to say the one that you went to.
Yeah, I went to one here in Brisbane. Very, very small. I'm talking like really small scale. It can fit in an office room in a building. Like it's tiny amount. But he, I won't give out his name, but he was saying like, oh yeah, I was doing a lot of Bitcoin mining with this stuff, and then costs went down or up or whatever, and so I've repurposed some of these to using for
I don't know if it's
stuff.
still the same, but I think like Bitcoin a couple of weeks ago did go below its electricity costs, so it was costing miners more than the Bitcoin itself.
That happens all the time. Or
that was the first time it ever happened.
No, that's not true.
I don't know.
I don't believe that. No.
That's why I was like, I was gonna ask you that about the electricity costs. It was they were saying it was the first time.
That cannot be true because Bitcoin did not have a price for a very long time, and people were using their machines to mine. So that's absolutely not true. I'm pretty sure, and by whose metric? I'm sure the whole point of Bitcoin mining is that the costs are not fixed for everyone. So there's I'm sure Bhutan, where they've got like zero cost for their energy, whatever, that they're not underwater. So yeah, that's a bullshit. Yeah, that's a bullshit statement.
The statements that they were made, and this probably is incorrect. They're saying Bitcoin has never dropped below its electric cost. But most of the graphs that I'm seeing pop up, it's all the way back to 2018.
That's retarded.
So I'm like, yes, it probably would be much lower. It would be like that way back in the day.
If that was clarified with maybe average electric cost, I would say, but electric cost, that's so stupid.
Yeah, I saw it and I haven't. I didn't put any
stupid.
I didn't put any attribution to it being like
This session is not going to be about business. It's going to be about retarded numbers that I've been hearing recently.
That's why it's meanderings. I think and then businesses overall, like in a historical context, I think it will repeat itself in that over a longer time. Yeah, people who don't innovate and it's a tried thing is even if you're a super early innovator, two things generally happen. You either sell out and then you just get consumed by the bigger players, either because you're VC funded and so they VC funded or other funded natures, they're looking for an exit. They're looking for 100x and they'll kick you out to do that, right? So they forget what you want. Or you just decide like, yep, you're a greenfield for a long time. Then you're in a brownfield. You just deliver a value. And as we talked about like a blockbuster, you just keep on delivering a better quality to that until the transition of the medium, the individuals, whatever, they value something else and someone else is coming along and providing that context. Fine. Then, if you don't move fast enough to transition either to support it or provide it, then you're going to be just left.
Okay. Last question on business as a whole. So traditionally, the way to do this, and traditionally, I mean that the last 100 years is stocks. You buy some stock of a business if you want to do that. Perhaps if you have some connections, you can get into like early private companies and things like that. how do you feel about investing in these companies now in this landscape? If you were, we used to have stocks. I personally don't. You probably still have some, I guess. Yep. How do you think about investing in companies nowadays? Has that changed at all? Because we talk about AI, but and as if it's like this big thing that's consuming everything, and it certainly gets a lot of media attention, but there's plenty of businesses where they kind of just tick along as well. The Rio Tintos of the world. How much are they? When I was there, they had autonomous driving trucks was one of the things that was talked about a bit, but it was like, in my mindset, we didn't do any experimentations with it. People still had truck drivers. I don't know how much that has changed. I think we did an episode on this at some point where
you're talking about that, yeah.
In any case, like their main thing is still just digging shit from the ground.
Sure.
So how do you think about investing in businesses nowadays? Is it easier? Is it harder? Is it
honestly, I think it's easier.
Yeah.
I think it's easier. And I would only say it's easier because there is fewer things that are amalgamating all the money. And so 20 years ago, you had hardware companies, you had software companies, you had medical companies, you had, shoppings, whatever. You had all of the variety of the markets that exist as part of the economy. But I guess my view at the moment and what I think it is right now is all the money is going to a very particular sector, which is your IT, it's your software, it's your hardware, it's your webware, it's all of that space, right? Everything else does have money, but the returns are in the shadows when you compare it to these humongous players. And I don't know what the most recent ones are, but I think you can look this up. If you compare the top 9 or 10 companies in any of the stock markets across the world, and you know how they say, the stock market's going up 7% a year, 8% a year. If you actually take away the gigantic ones that make all the returns, most of these stock markets are in the negative. So I think especially in the US, I saw this one in the US, if you took away FANGs or the top ones, on the year to year, it's actually like a 1% return, like 2% return. So it's below inflation numbers, some of these returns. Now, this is obvious, is because at least in the last couple of years, this has not always been the case, but in the last couple of years, these few companies are the ones generating all of the marketplace value. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the revenue, but it's the marketplace value. And so the only reason I say it's easier is that you literally could just go, I'm just going to invest in these particular companies, or more fundamentally, what are these new companies and what are these companies after that then are feeding them to achieve what it is that they want. I don't personally invest in copper, but it is obvious as balls that everyone's going to need fucking copper to do everything that's going on in the data centers. And there's a gigantic shortage of copper, and copper is going through the roof. So associated to something like that, right? I haven't looked into this, but if it was something in relation to, because then you still have to then pick the right company who's going to do it well, who's not going to do it. And I just can't bother getting into that. But in the copper space, let's just say, if you could figure out what are the particular companies that are helping to manufacture the things for, the data centers, that seems like a no-brainer to me in terms of, yes, they're going to have a ridiculous amount of revenue that comes through to them because there's already too much demand for how much is being used, and it's going to continue on. I don't see a shortage of that. So maybe there's easier ways in that way because it's contained into one sector with all the money. And so you can get it kind of wrong, but there's still so much money that you're probably going to be okay with it in comparison to what it was 20 years ago.
Yeah, the tricky thing with investing is you can't just have one central idea of what a company does, or like you can be like, so the whole point of investing is like you're trying to predict the future essentially. Like that's what you're making your bet on. Like I'm willing to put capital to predict what I think is going to happen, and you can do that well or poorly or neutrally, and the kind of return that you get of money is kind of a abstracted way of saying, yes, you were good at predicting the future, and sometimes you can get lucky, and you invest in a Bitcoin thing because you're like, oh, I'm positive a Bitcoin miner because you're like, oh, I like Bitcoin, it's gonna do well in the future, and then they turn it into an AI business and they fucking make a shit ton of money. And you're like, well, I didn't really see that coming, but
but I got lucky from it.
Yeah. I've just started reading a new book called Thinking in Bets, which is like a ex-pro poker player, and she's talking about how to make decision making, and this kind of thing popped up right at the start of the book, which is, if she asked people what was like the worst decision you made over this last year, typically they associate it with the worst result, but it's actually the decision making that went into it that should be what she's asking that called into question, aka the example she uses is the Seahawks versus New England Patriots. I think it was 2016 Super Bowl. It's famous, like, last 25 seconds, 35 seconds, whatever. They throw the ball, it gets intercepted, and everyone's like, "You had this great running back, Marshawn Lynch, beast mode. You should have used it." And I was literally part of that camp probably like a day ago. Because I watch videos of that guy, and that guy's fucking crazy. And then she talks about like, if you actually break down some of the stats, how many interceptions happen if you're 1 meter away from the goal line, how much more chances they had. It actually wasn't that bad of a decision. They just got really unlucky with the outcome. And so everyone says like that was a really shit decision. But if it had just changed the opposite way, then it wouldn't be a bad decision.
Yeah, I guess. But I wonder if she used. There is something to the statistic of it. Okay, fine. But then I wonder if she weighed it with the risk, like the problematic consequences of the intercept. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, an intercept might be like a 3% or a 2% chance. I don't know what the fuck the number is. Let's say it's 10% chance.
The stat she had was there was 61 throws of teams that year in throwing from that range, 0 interceptions. So like the stats were...
Oh, right, okay. It was 0.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Yeah.
Whereas how many fumbles would you have from a guy running it in from then? I don't know. She didn't talk about that, but you can weigh up these things.
Yeah,
anyway,
okay.
The thing... I saw a post recently. It was like, okay, if you're interested in X402, for example, how can I get exposure to this? And it's like, oh, well, probably maybe, and it was a Coin Bureau video, and they're kind of like mainstreamish in terms of like cryptocurrency research / news, and they were saying like, oh, how can you get exposure to this? And their two suggestions were Coinbase and Circle, because Coinbase is helping develop the standard, and obviously they've got base USDC, and so if people are using that, they're going to get some of that revenue. And USDC as the Circle, that's their main product. So if people are using that, if X402 is getting used, if USDC is being used on that, and base as the mechanism, any value transfer of fees and stuff will be going to them. And I was just like, bruh, these companies are fucking behemoths with so many other different like revenue streams, factors affecting their thing. X402 at the moment is this tiny little drop in the bucket. Yeah, sure, maybe in 10 years' time it could be a revolutionary, like, enable micropayments, which is something I want to talk about after the Boostagram Lounge. But like, if you're investing on that based on that right now, that would be a really stupid decision to make.
Well, I would only say it wouldn't be a stupid decision if it's a small enough player so that the multiplier value of whatever you're investing, so from a business perspective, is worth it. Like, I think the example a lot of people make is, if you think about it, Nvidia was worth very little, but it was around the time that, basically Amazon was being built and a lot of these other players, right, back in the 90s. And so if you could have spotted what Nvidia was going to do back then, I mean, basically no one would have, but if you could have spotted it and you knew what Jensen Huang was going to be doing and stuff like that, then okay. But if you're putting the money into, okay, so if it's a gigantic company that has X42 as a site and you're betting on, oh, well, you know, in 10 years, 15 years, it's going to be huge. Okay, it might be. There's companies that are already quite large companies. You're not going to get the multiples that you're actually looking for from an investment to the risk that you're there. Whereas an Nvidia 30 years ago, you would have, that would have been a risky move because, they're just doing these little things and then becomes into gaming. But if you believed in whatever it is that was going to be used there, huge multiples.
So the good decision would be to invest maybe like $50 in 50 companies that were like Nvidia at the time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a lot of the things. A lot of the things that people talk about these days is, we're in this boom of AI conversations, and yes, there's huge players on the OpenAIs and Anthropics and Grok and stuff like that, XAI. But the big question is, what are the really small players out right now that will take all of these benefits that are coming, and then 20 years will be huge because of it? That's kind of like the conversation that's happening.
Yeah, which I think will get us onto perhaps the smaller side of business, the more personal sort of thing. So we'll jump into that. Before we do that, the Boostagram Lounge, this is where we just thank any supporters for the show. I've seen some streaming on some little areas, but
there has been some streaming. I have also seen that the streams have dropped as well in terms of the amount of sats. Like, I can't remember how much Lyceum used to stream, but it's down to one sat. 1 sat per minute, but it's still. Thank you very much for the streaming through there.
Appreciate that, Lyceum. So if you want to help support the show, meremortalspodcast.com/support or podcasts.com. Both will lead you to the same place. And we've got a couple of suggestions there. You can do it via PayPal. You can do it via what we just mentioned, which was using a podcasting 2.0 app. Fountain, Podcast Guru, Podverse, True Fans. The list goes on. There's a couple of them there. I've got a video explaining how you can do that. And then also just some comments and stuff if you want to give us suggestions, feedback on the show. All those things are appreciated.
Correct.
So talking about the micropayments and things like this. So there's still, I'm a slow moving ship. In a way, It takes me a while to alter course, but when I do, I tend to not deviate from it. I feel like you're more of a speedboat.
I always move. I'm always just
one zigging and zagging. I'm like, I'll take this big fucking U-turn and just hope that I'm not like that Italian captain and hitting the reef shore. One thing that's been in my mind for, I don't know, you could say this is 6 years old now. Ever since we really got into podcasting. And for me, it's been this dilemma with content creation and sending and receiving value for that. How it's kind of how do you measure? Probably the big question is how do you measure value of something? What is the value of something? I've been trying to solve this question in my own head for a while. And then it's ever linking down. So it's okay, but how do you value the content that we create? How can an individual piece of that content be created? What is the value that you can receive in return from that? All these sorts of things. Kind of why I did the Value for Value podcast explaining that. And so I feel like I'm unlocking little gems of knowledge and wisdom here and there, and eventually I'll be able to form them into a kind of a
cohesive thing,
idea of something that's a bit more like a pyramid or something. At the moment, I've just got all this rubble everywhere. I'm trying to build it up into something. Things like Bitcoin and understanding why that's valuable is a nice cornerstone of how value is not just a monetary thing, is another cornerstone and things like this. And also just seeing how sometimes they will link and not link. I'm getting much more confident that things like the Lightning Network and using it is just technologically not feasible as a long-term solution for sending money, or micropayments, for example. Micropayments are another one. I think this is, why should money be bounded by time like it is for a lot of things. You get a monthly paycheck, maybe a weekly or a fortnightly one. You pay bills on a certain date. Why is none of this like a continuous stream? I think that will become that. It makes sense to me in some domains, not every domain. Some domains you might want a fixed payment or set in time, but I think for many use cases, a continuous stream makes more sense to me. And I just don't think the Lightning networks can do that. So this is why I'm spending way more time on X402 because I think that architecture makes more sense and is how would I say it, like more readily available. The transaction costs, being able to use it, the adoption, all of it points to me towards something like USDC on base is essentially what I'm leaning more and more towards. Having a stable in the sense of like day to day, but not over a long period, coin of the US dollar, and using that via that mechanism. It just the more time I spend in that area, the more I go, okay, this is where I think it's going.
Sure.
Going to the OpenClaw meetup, meeting some of the people there has also, and then also seeing someone like David Johnston, who I really respect as someone who's early to things and cares about like the value of stuff behind the money in a way. So like he's concerned about privacy, he's concerned about permissionless access and things like this to intelligence and permissionless access to money, which is why he got into Ethereum really early. He is like balls deep in the AI OpenClaw system, and I use that as kind of like a warning, not a warning, like a when people are doing behavior like lining up to buy the first Apple iPhone. I think that if you notice that and going like, whoa, what's going on here? And then decided to get into like software and developing apps or something, that was an amazing opportunity to do something with your life.
Yep.
Well, not to do something with your life. If you wanted to create a business, for example. And yeah, I see the same sort of thing happening now. And so I'm very tempted to try and create something in this area. And so this is like the slow moving ship of being like, okay, I've spent a lot of time on the last couple of years of testing out some different things, and I'm honing more in on this path of like, this is what I want to focus on. And then I can expand it out a bit more. But,
yeah. No. I guess two thoughts come to my mind is, for me personally as well. So one, there's a view towards, I've heard the likes of Gary Vee, which and I did this in the podcast a while ago. I'm like, I don't think he's the individual I'd start to see more about like the latest and greatest on software side. But one of the topics or things that he has talked about, I heard, was the going more analog towards the younger generation. There's going to be a little bit of a pullback to being so connected online as much for some of the generation. Maybe not always, but I could see some value or view towards giving value to people in the more that analog way. So they disconnected, be it a group environment, being in a get together or going for an exploration or something to that effect. I could see that being valuable, like more connectivity in the real world, although that would be a micro size sort of thing. So don't go into that probably expecting it's going to be, billions of dollars. No way. I think there's more just a small lifestyle business that could be generated in those spaces. But I feel like a lot of people won't do it. Well, a lot of people who I guess think about it from a business or who are like, I want to do a business, probably won't do it just for the pure fact that there's not going to be a whole lot of money in it. It's just going to be, you can give value to people doing it that way and get that money in return. So there's that. The other one though that I see in the general business lenses, if you will, is that the trend that I'm seeing more rather than less is all these people who are wanting to, so obviously AI space, but even in other areas or marketplaces, the speed and effort that some people are putting, not just like the one or the two, but like the everyone, seems a consistent of, oh shit, everyone's just going even more hardcore into, maybe I put it, there was a time when everyone was like, oh, I'm grinding, I'm working really hard. And there was a lull from that where it's like, no, we shouldn't be pushing this hard. We should be, being a little bit more balanced. And there was that trend, I guess I would say. And I'm seeing it start to shift away again from that to, no, you should be working fucking every hour of every day. And the people who are saying, hey, you should be a little bit balanced, are starting to either get a bit of like hit on being like, oh, you're shit because you don't understand, or it's like lesser. But so right now, so this is again, just specifically in the tech world, AI related spaces, that there's the new contracts that are coming out, 996s. There's no longer, work the 9 to 5 to 5. It's 9 to 9 to 6, which is 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. That's the contracts. Most people are working in the US and almost trying to like catch up to the China level of hours. And part of me goes, I think you can definitely can create something and do something in that space, but the level of some people with the funds that they have, the speed that they're working, or the ferociousness, feels like unless you're like really single-minded into that space, man, it feels hard to kind of like break into that space in favor of someone just taking your pie that you're trying to do. But maybe I haven't like looked into it that further. So I think there's definitely going to be the two camps. I don't think there's going to be much of that neutral ground anymore. And we're not talking anything futuristic here about, what's going to happen with work and abundance, blah, blah, blah. Forget all that. There's just, I think, just purely business. Like, all right now, there's be more analog and get a little bit of funds and provide value. But then on the value end of, doing something app-related or tech-related, I think you either move hard and fast with it and you accomplish something, you get something behind you, or you do it for a little bit and then it just gets absolutely consumed by somebody else in like a month. I mean, the super easy one to compare it is the last last year, there has been, I don't know the numbers, but there's been a ton load of companies that are like, oh, I created this app and it does this and blah, blah, blah. And then next deployment would happen from an OpenAI or Anthropic, and those companies are gone because it's just taken every single function and feature and nobody's using it. So it's like they were good for 2 months or 3 months, and then their entire company idea is gone because the new whatever LLM deployment or functionality they have just completely overtook that. So it's like, okay.
Sure. A guy I met at the OpenClaw meetup, he was telling me about what he does for business. He's like software developer, worked in companies for ages, and then in the early 2010s was like, this iPhone thing's like really interesting. I'm gonna like spend more time developing an app, and so he eventually created like a suite of apps, and it sounded very like, I don't know, not blasé, but he's got an astrology one. He's got a fishing one. Yeah. He's got like another like couple that are in that sort of realm of like they'll touch astrology. Was
he an older man with white hair? And like pretty tall?
His name was Peter.
Was he pretty tall? Taller than you?
He was sitting down. I don't think so, no.
Okay. Yeah, well, good.
Anyway, and funnily enough, he is saying one of the distinguishing points of his apps now are that he can point back to all of the astrology predictions and stuff in it and say, this has been around for ages. None of this is AI generated. This is human. I crafted all of these, and that's a selling point now, and it's working.
Okay.
So, funnily enough, like you can have the analog even in the digital world.
Yeah, gotcha. Yep.
So just a funny little side note there. Look, that was very generic what I said before. Like I'll try and hone in on something specific on these building blocks and build it into a pyramid for myself. And once again, this is it's like a business idea, but I don't know if I would approach it with the same intensity that perhaps is not required. That you were talking about with this 996 stuff. That's fucking crazy. I hadn't heard of that before.
Yeah, look it up if you want. There's a conversation just recently of a lot of people who have worked in that space, right? And the big thing, there's a camp of people who go, oh my God, what do you mean they're working 72 hours a week? And so there's other people who are in that space and they're like, no, you don't fucking get it. Like these people are loving working 72 hours. They're young. They don't have families.
Yeah.
Also, they're getting closing on $10 million, $20 million per year. Like these people would work more hours if they could on this freaking thing.
Yeah, so I linked in our Discord paulgraham.com/wealth.html.
Yep.
And it's this really old web page. You can tell it's very old. Of this guy, Paul Graham. I don't know who he is.
Paul Graham is the creator of Y Combinator, along with somebody else. Can't remember what the other guy was.
Okay.
And he made his absolute millions. He sold a software company in the 90s for, I think it was 30 million, maybe more. And for a long time, Paul he had like cool kind of ideas around innovating and doing things fast. And he had a truckload of people being like, helping him out, being like asking him questions, I want to do this, and he would try to give his advice. And at the same time, he also became an investor, and he was doing a lot of investing. And basically, the way Y Combinator came was he was giving a speech once, or he was doing a lecture once, and it kind of clicked into him, being like, we should create something like a Y Combinator, where essentially you just bring lots of people who have really great ideas, and we'll put them through a particular like training education plan where we'll invest money, but we'll also help them kind of to achieve that, and so it helps people go down the right path of innovating to then get the big exits or the big money that comes out of it, and then they win because they're investing into those companies.
Yep. So thank you for the background on him. This article that he wrote, or article, piece, essay, is essentially like, okay, if you want to create wealth, how would you go about it? Or like if you want to perhaps get rich or create wealth, similar thing, but slightly different at the same time. Mm-hmm. And in it, he talks about, the two things that you can do are like leverage and and like time management or something like that, where it's essentially, if you're working for a company, you don't get rewarded for working extra hours. Like if I was in Rio Tinto and I worked an extra 3 hours a day, I'm not getting an extra compensation for that. It's just it's too granular for the company to tie my performance to hours worked, for example, or output. And when you're in these large behemoth companies, they just average everything out. So it's like if you're an engineer, you get an average of this salary.
I disagree with him on that.
Well, that's how he was saying it's largely structured. And then the other one would be leverage. So doing things where you can have an outsized impact. And he talks about this in technology, but this was largely before technology of how we think of it now, where it's like bits of electricity and things like this. Where we talked at the start, you can have technology of hydraulics, which can revolutionize things and make a lot of wealth. And he also separates wealth from the idea of money. If you've got a car mechanic and he undoes one bolt, swaps it out, cleans it or something, does it back up, he's created wealth, not necessarily like he's improved something, but there's no money attached to that per se. We just attach the money afterwards. So that's kind of talking about how wealth is not money. You can have a lot of wealth and very little money, for example. He talks about that. So if I was to create a business, and in that sense, I'm talking about if I was going to try and create value and wealth, how would I go about it at the moment? Some of the things that I've been thinking are of like very similar. I know that's not a wealth creation vehicle for myself. So it'd be likely to be a solo pursuit, or if very, very little people involved with it. Let me get out my phone because I created a little
some notes around this.
Yeah, a little checklist of some things that I'm good at and not good at, or that I feel like I've learnt about myself over the years. Here we go. And also the reason I dislike organizations is that you kind of lose yourself in them. The best work that I did with Rio Tinto was probably when I was most automator-like. Like there would be no individual...
Lots of autonomy.
Yeah. That was when I'd get in the zone and I'd lose like a whole fucking day just creating designs. Was that benefit? And this is where I think like, okay, that was the type of work that I feel AI could do at some stage. I don't know if they could do it now. It'd be pretty hard, and you'd probably need checking at it. But maybe my job there would have evolved to become like just checking whether the AI did the designs in the right place, and there's not like
probably
a dozer going to dig into a wall or fall off a high wall or some shit like that. And where I, sorry, that was probably like the least valuable thing I was doing, but necessary. The most valuable was when it was like really complex logistical issues where you needed to have like 8 things in mind, and I had to sort things out until I found the optimal solution or the most optimized solution or something like that. And so, what are some of the skills that I possessed in that sense, which would be like logistics and resource allocation is just something I think I'm good at, or holding many ideas that are sometimes paradoxical in mind at the same time, something like that. So like this and the second, third order cascading events, definitely like ideas. And so creating a product, especially when you're talking about a SaaS product or something, hell no. So the other one would be the, how would I put this? I watch some live streamers, for example, and I've also come to I've really been noticing recently, I am falling into, there's a lot of like really shitty YouTube videos that are on a topic that I enjoy or I'm interested in, and I get fed a video which is AI slop and is essentially like full of just shitty information.
Sure.
And how do I verify this? I go into the comments and I find the real nerds who are like, you got this thing wrong, this, XYZ thing, like I'm sick of fucking AI. And it's getting harder and harder to determine what is and isn't, because typically these channels will have like a couple of thousand subscribers or something now, but I'm finding ones with like 30,000, 40,000.
Okay, wow.
Decent amount of views in the video as well. And I'm like, this is getting really hard to, as an example, pacemakers and running. I've been watching some running videos and I'm like, oh, what do pacemakers actually do? Like, how do they influence the race? What's their purpose, and how has racing changed since then? And yeah, a lot of shitty videos.
Wow.
On pacemakers out there. It took me a while to find
a decent one.
Okay. So live streaming is a thing that I'm interested in doing, and so essentially it would be, my business idea would be using OpenClaw to like automate a lot of the stuff I didn't enjoy doing about podcasting and video 3 years ago. The creating of clips, the social notifications, the like posting, like the self-promotional aspect. If I could get OpenClaw to do a lot of that for me, I'd be really up for live streaming 5 hours plus a day again. Or not again, I never did that, but
just
doing something like that. And within that time period, a lot of it's not going to be really professional, highly edited stuff with a particular goal in mind, but introducing some little segments in there which I could then cut and put out as standalone pieces. That would kind of be my, I guess if you want to call it, business idea. And
But I guess in the business, in that particular example, I guess if you did that, what
like
you're
the money
obviously
creation.
you're obviously giving value to people. How are people giving you value?
Yeah, and
Or
then
what's their reasoning for giving you value?
well, the reason for giving value would be if I create something that they find interesting, entertaining. I'd hopefully informational and entertaining would probably be the two things that I would be able to provide the most on. And so I would do it on stuff that I'm currently spending all my time on. Digital art, on, I guess, like the new Web3 brands, if you want to call that. So digital art would just be like art that I enjoy, I'm collecting, and, you know, do that mostly not for the purpose of wealth as an investment, but for stuff that I really enjoy.
Yep.
The branding stuff is more on the investment side of things, and this would be things like VFriends. I haven't talked about Rect before, but some branding stuff like that. The book, like book reviews, obviously back into them again.
But where in this example, and I guess this is an interesting example for people to listen, I guess, from a business perspective, would you then want people to be using the existing value for value models to do that?
I'd probably still get towards that, but you know, if Patreon made sense, I'd perhaps do that. But yeah, I'd probably be still inclined for value, and then that gets into like, I probably wouldn't be recommending them to go on podcasting apps and use Fountain. I'd probably be looking for other ways of doing that, whether it's via PayPal links, which Adam Curry still does.
There's the thing. I think that example, just like any other, let's just I call it like value provided by a human at this point, or what will become in the future, I think will become the lifestyle businesses that maybe people that would have thought once upon a time, okay, it's kind of like the fair few that can do it. I reckon it'll be the majority of people can do that, in that, you know, there will be a lot of people with more time, maybe more of the availability to spend to that, and so it'll become a lifestyle business.
What are they going to do? Well, you know, how can you differentiate yourself when there's 50 videos there of this AI slop on pacemaking, and you've got some guy who's really interested in it and can create. I think there's ways of cutting through that noise, but you have to go about it in different ways. Live video, for example, is one at the moment where we still have an edge. How long will that last for? Who knows? You know, perhaps this then goes into like live video with the social element of like you're doing it in front of like a background that's interesting. You got people walking past you, behind you in the background or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I think any of those ideas are one of those that I'd probably say to people will become the, I reckon in, I don't know whatever time frame, will be the replacement to normal work, honestly, because it will be, at least my view, it's going to be very minimal amount of jobs that will really exist for a human in 15 years time, apart from expressing the humanity of something or other. So, you know, at that point, maybe more people have the time to do running or to do swimming or pick a modality, pick something. And if you're interested in running or pacemaking or something, okay, sure, maybe people will spend, and whatever that looks like in spending will give you that value, and maybe a lot more people are doing that in those particular days. I think the leaving it in the, I could just do my existing type of role. Yeah, that'll exist for a while, but people use the word, which I think people hate it, and maybe I hate it too, the concept of, as time goes on, everyone's going to have to become an entrepreneur, right? And I kind of have a distaste of that particular word in saying it that way. But what you're explaining there is, I think I'd say it more like, I think everyone's just going to have the availability of being themselves, putting themselves out there, whether it's content, whether it's something else, and people will give value across the board so that you have a acceptable income to live, to do what you need to do, whatever. And yes, there will be the fair few where all the money's going to, where there's huge software being built or amazing, ridiculous things being created, but the amount of capital and time and things that you need to achieve that is pretty crazy, and you'd have to be committed, have the availability of time, want to give up a lot of things in life to pursue that.
Yeah. There's a highly individualized sort of idea for myself, doing things that I think I do well and avoiding the things that I do poorly at. You invited me to go to the Soso's Run Club yesterday, or talked about going to it. I'm just like, I don't do well in mornings. Like, testing it out and trying it for a while is fine, but it's like there's a reason why I'm not getting up early in the mornings and running now, because it's just like it just fucks me over for the rest of my day, like that morning and the night before. So there's reasons for not doing that. For you yourself, Juan, if you were thinking of like you've already got tons of business ideas, I'm sure another 10 since we were just talking, but what do you think would promote you or prompt you to act on one of them? And
this is it's an interesting question. I think the answer right now is it's like none.
Yeah.
It's now definitely a transition, obviously, where I am in life right now, but it's very much I don't need to is kind of like the mindset. Like there is no the example would be, unless I'm 100xing what I have, then it's meaningful. But 2xing, 4xing, it's kind of meaningless in the concept of where I am today. Kind of makes no sense. There was, can't remember someone talking to Tim or someone talking to Chris Williamson. I think it was, what's his name? The bald guy. I forget his name. Not important. But it was someone basically like, hey, once you buy your own house, basically the next best time to spend money on is buying your own plane. And he's like, everything in between, meaningless. Don't worry about fucking supercars. Don't worry about a yacht. But if you can get a private plane, fantastic. That's the next bit of money. And then, they're making a joke being like, okay, that's a huge freaking gap. But I guess the point of it is when you have, like right now in our lives, like, okay, we're happy, we're content, we have what we need. The next level that would be like really significant would be something like that, right? I'm talking 100x and be like, wow, okay, this is like really beneficial. But to do anything right now beyond just to like achieve a 2x or 4x is sort of meaningless. There's zero change to my life and lifestyle. And to the example I just gave, maybe some of the ideas that I do come up with mean I have to sacrifice things right now to invest time, to do it, to progress it. And it's sort of like, well, why would I do that to leverage it for a 4x? That makes no sense. But sure, if an idea or potential came where it was obvious that maybe like 100x could become, or even more, okay, maybe I could see that the sacrifice might be there for it. To be realistic, I guess I'd say I've almost not resigned myself, but I've almost committed my mind in I can do the things that I'm doing today for 10 years until my daughters are in school and there's more time availability that, like, me being supremely present is not as important at those times because they've kind of started to build up their own lives and they're doing their own things. And so maybe there's an understanding and making like, oh yeah, that is going to take this time to do this particular thing and travel or whatever, which makes sense. Right now, it just does not make sense to do anything like that. Sure. But by then I could see, and like I said, more of the analog type conversation, I could see myself doing something along that where whether it could be, conversations with a handful of people in like rooms, that would be cool, or something that's almost supporting or connecting with other people for some sort of monetary support, whatever the monetary thing looks like, in smaller groups. That I could see myself doing, because I find like I would find joy in that, giving back and learning and whatnot. I found myself there's a lot of, as you're right to say, I'm good at kind of like coming up with ideas. I'm good at connecting with the issue or workflow improve, all those sort of things. What I'm not that good at is being the number one person of a company, being this, the managing director to run the new idea, to actually bring it into, the reality. Nah, that's not as motivating / because as you say, I'm kind of a speedboat. I just jump between things, and the dedication and discipline needed to do something maybe over 3 years is like just not something that I content myself with. Yeah. So I could see whatever it is that I do is more containerized. There's less time. Maybe it is something still along the consulting type edge. When I went to the AI group, the running club group, it ends up being, there's quite a few of them, a handful of them are business owners. And a lot of the conversations we end up having were about how they're doing with their business. And it's so easy for me to just get into the flow of like, okay, tell me about like this and what's the problem and okay, have you thought about, introducing this? And I guess keeping myself connected with all the possibilities. I find it fun to come up with the idea and what you should do. Not necessarily the like, okay, cool, now let's put the application over for the next 6 months.
I think the day-to-day grind of that would destroy you.
The doing that is like, and then obviously my day-to-day is bringing things to life and delivering things, but I'm very particular. I'm not a sustainment, but I like to sustain things. If anyone's managed sustainment or do maintenance stuff on products, if you're out there, you're like, I'm going to create a product in this, and I'm going to do that. Get ready till you fucking figure out about level 1, level 2, level 3 support, maintaining. Oh, you got to change your firewall because your docking station is this, but your database is in another. And yeah, get ready for that. You're gonna get fucked up. Like you'll hate it. You won't.
No,
it's a completely.
Some people love that.
And some people love that, right? Like the operational side. But it's if you're someone who's creating a product and you're like, oh, I'm gonna release this or whatever, man, you're gonna get your face like smacked when you realize about this other layer of it, which is where a lot of the hours and investment and meticulation comes. But the initiation of the idea or of the bringing it to life, the 0 to 1 with a group of people, okay, I could get amongst that, but more of the, I think for me would be something along the duration. It's not the 0 to 1, but it's just the coming up to the 0 and what the 0 to the 1 should be.
Sure.
That's probably more along the lines of that.
Yeah, exactly. So for myself, once again, the ship is slow moving, so it would be a while before I would really enact any of this. Mm-hmm. But some of the warning signs would be getting a new laptop, and hardware is stuff that I like. When I start like spending on things, that's when it's like, all right, like Kyron's really like, this is an important thing. Okay, I just don't buy things. So like a laptop and new phone, that it kind of makes sense anyway, because I need new ones. Like the ones I currently have are like, they're getting pretty rough. I don't know if I can show it to the screen, but like, I've got the screen burn on this phone, for example, where you can see all the
no, I don't know if it'll be easy to see on the...
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, probably too hard. Anyway, the new hardware would be one indication that I'm getting more into that. I feel like I've already started the process by creating multiple like accounts now for different things, for like Twitter accounts, Google accounts. All of these are almost setting myself up for like connecting something to all of these, so that it can do the social posting and stuff. So I feel like that's an inadvertent thing I've already been doing. Yep. And yeah, probably a setup of like moving to somewhere or creating a location where it's like something's fixed in stone. And it's like, all right, I can optimize this by, clicking the button and essentially just jumping into it every day.
Sure. Yeah.
So, those some of the ideas that have been going through my mind. So felt like getting that off the chest.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. Wait for a couple of, the slow moving ship does indeed at the end up turning. So let's see where the ship ends up turning to. And I think if you're listening, if you're listening to this and you kind of, I don't know, this is obviously about business. And if you've got ideas on your end of like shifting and changing, I think one of the biggest things is trying it out at the smallest scale as possible too, right? Because it's not until you, like, often is what I see, that people have all these big dreams and big ideas and big whatever until you start doing something, and then you are actually faced with the reality. The reality is actually this, and I've got to do that. If someone's thinking, let's just take social media images, video, that sort of thing, it's not until you actually start chaining up the N8N or something else automation to connect to all your chats and whatever to create the thing, and in your 17-step one, it actually breaks in the middle of it. And we've seen this with the podcast, like we've had this plenty of times, but when something like that breaks, that is actually when you have to face the music and go, oh, actually, to get this working, I have to spend another hour to get this working. And the Moonshots podcast just started going live as opposed to doing it record. I don't know if they'll continue. I think it broke for them 10 times, 12 times in a particular video, right?
So they've got four connections from different areas. That's
and so you had all this like, the mic stopped working, the screen share stopped working, someone froze, someone dropped off.
Yeah.
And, add this to this, whatever creations and connections you want to people, right? As much as you want it, you're online, you're connected to all these various things. There's just more when people have this idea, I think it's just as quickly as possible, give it a trial and see where the pain points are. And if you can live with some of those pain points, then fuck it, continue doing it. But so I'll give you my personal view of what I think I'm probably going to do over the next year or two. I'm not going to be just sitting doing nothing. This is an example. It's very likely I'm just going to be buying existing businesses in the surrounding area, my local area that I live in. Mm-hmm. Easy business, low six figures type of deal, where I can go in, I can improve workflows, I can create efficiencies. I'm leveraging but I'm leveraging existing customers, existing businesses that are already got a generating income, and actually bringing them in terms of a better profit margin to them. If you really wanted to get into my mind of what I think I'm going to be doing, is I might try and do 1 or 2 businesses per year. I'm going to congregate a particular type of business. So this could be health, it could be cafes, it could be whatever. I'm going to congregate it into one type of business that is now running whatever. Let's just say 10, 12 businesses over the next 5-6 years. Mm-hmm. But they're all AI efficient companies that are just like all in the healthcare space, or it's in the food space or whatever. Yeah. And then you can sell a grouping of that at a multiple to a bigger company and then exit out of that.
Paul Graham highly does not recommend restaurants as a
don't do. I say restaurants because it's like an example. I'd probably say cafes more than restaurants for an example of people. The only thing would be is like,
what's the difference? Aren't they still like? Isn't the business model still basically
slightly different? I guess. So you could have a cafe that's predominantly food related, and so they do more to food sale.
I think the service industry is what he's referring to.
And I think it's an interesting one. So like,
cafe restaurant.
So you could call it service related, which absolutely it is service related. But as an example of a business, in my mind, I go, what are the services that are physical that a lot of people will still continue to want to use? And at least in Australia, coffee or cafes are a pretty consistent thing that's been around for it. Now, I'm not saying that is the business that I've been looking for. I've looked into them plenty of times, and I'll tell you right now, they're not super efficient or effective with their money, nor would I say are they fantastic from an efficiency workflow perspective. What are the ones that you could make absolute bang for your buck? And I'll tell you right now, if you want to go and buy these sort of things, any of the construction style of things, a mowing business, a HVAC business, a roof cleaning business, a house cleaning businesses, a lot of these businesses are built up on very manual, very like rudimentary setups. It's usually you have an electrician or a construction guy, someone else who's doing it. It's not, these sort of things are always for sale. They're in a low 6 figures. It is very easy to buy 1 or 2 of these, put a consistent system underneath on terms of a layer, automate a lot of processes. Usually they have like, I've seen this, they have like, it's 2 of their friends and their mum who are like the call center people. You can very easily just swap that out for a more efficient level 1, level 2 system. And then if you cut that out, you're already making a much more efficient business. Conglomerate together into a few of those, sell them for a multiple. Fantastic. And so in my personal view, I'm like, okay, that's the least amount of effort where I'm leveraging something existing. So if I'm talking business, I kind of go, I actually see a better investment right now is just leveraging capital to use already existing places or businesses and improving them, as opposed to going 0 to 1. So here it's like the example of the 95 to 98, I guess is the example.
Sure.
So, I don't know if there's any other comments that we've got on the video at the moment. I think we'll leave it there. Mere mortal lights. Thank you very much for joining us for a little bit of a meanderings. Once again, we're going live 9 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. I hope you're well wherever you are in the world. For now, Juan out.
Karen out.
Peace.
Oh.
Ciao. Good.